Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Jimmy Buffett headlines PBS's A Capitol Fourth concert on Independence Day. I spoke with Buffett when his musical Escape to Margaritaville hit National Theater in 2019. It's an absolute honor to have you here.
Oh, well, thanks, Jason. It's nice to be back in D.C. and look, I brought the weather.
Yeah, we needed it.
Nice. I'll leave it for you.
Yeah, we think of all your Parrot Head tours and your concerts and everything, but when were you like, I want to try this on stage?
Well, I will tell you a very funny story because it started right here in Washington, D.C. And it was a friend of mine, the great Jack Boyle, legendary Jack Boyle, who ran Cellar Door Productions and had the Cellar Door in Georgetown. Believed in me before anybody else years and years ago when I was a solo act. And, and he brought me to the D.C. area, and we started working, and as things went, in those days, it was kind of like minor league ball. You started in club level. If the promoters thought you worked your way up to opening act, and then if you were good enough, you'd headline.
To the show.
That happened to me here over, for 40 years, I guess, And they're memorable days of Meriwether Post in the old days, and now we do. But we're always touring in this area. It's always on our map. But Jack, at one point in time, we were talking about it because he was a great fan of Herman Wouk's, and Herman Wouk lived in Georgetown at that time. And he was the one that said to me, Jack Boyle said, you ought to look at Don't Stop the Carnival as a musical. He said, there's a group of people that just love that, and I knew about it because at that point I was living on my sailboat down in the Caribbean, and everybody had that book on board. So it was Jack Boyle who kind of came up with the idea of a musical. Well, it turned out that we did that musical with Herman Wouk, and it was the first musical I did. We did Don't Stop the Carnival. It played in Miami, never made it to Broadway, but it was one of the great experiences of my life. And from that, people that went to that show are investors in this show.
That's awesome. There's a DC tie that no one even knew about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a breaking story, Jason. Jack Boyle was the first one that did it, and it gave me the idea to go. And I chased and I found Herman Wouk, and he didn't know who I was. I didn't know he was still alive, and I went to visit him, and a day later, he wasn't doing anything, so he wrote the libretto for that show, and I did the music for it. And as I said, that spawned my interest, and I love musical theater because my mother was a great local performer in Mobile, Alabama, where I grew up at the Mobile Theater Guild. So I would go to shows with her. And
did you have any favorites as a kid?
Oh, South Pacific.
Oh, well, of course. I should have known.
Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est belle. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So, it's nice to come full circle. And plus, Jack was so good to me in the D.C. area to give me a break here to play the Cellar Door in those days. And I've got a $300 check that I'd never cashed. I don't know why I lost it at the time. I sure as hell would have cashed it in those days. But somehow it wound up, and it's like sitting up there. That was for a week at the Cellar Door.
Oh, you had it framed for a while?
Yeah. I guess I still have it framed. Yeah,
somewhere.
It's up there. Yeah. No, it's in my office. Yeah.
That's so awesome. All right, so that's great. So you do this other musical down in Miami, Carnival, and then how do you bridge that into this one? You say, okay, well, now let's do sort of kind of like a greatest hits version.
Well, some of our producers and good friends who are from South Florida got together they connected up and came to me through a series of people that I knew in New York, going through the process, and presented me with the idea of doing it, and I liked it a lot. And then my dear friend and co-producer Frank Marshall kind of was there to shepherd the process, and we went for it.
Yeah. And you guys got a couple Emmy-winning and Emmy-nominated writers to write this thing with you. How much input did you have with them story-wise? We'll get to the music in a second, but the basic premise, we're at a bar in the Caribbean. How much of that was you, or how much of them is bouncing notes off you, kind of a thing?
Well, most of the songs that I write are autobiographical. Some of them are made up. I never tell what's what, but having that much material out there that has affected people. That I know in a positive way, with a little release from the tediousness of daily life. I was so lucky to just get that job and then wound up in Key West, Florida, which accelerated the process of writing about places that I liked and being there. and all of a sudden you realize that was in every culture, and everybody needs those couple of days off. And I was lucky enough to kind of put my thumb on that pulse beat. And so when the writers came along, it was very important that they were part of that group of people that were basically parrot heads for that term's around kind of calling it. But there's different levels of parrot headism, I would say.
Oh, yeah? What do you call the different tiers?
I don't know what the different tiers are, but let's see. But it depends on costumes and things of that nature. But as a child of the Mardi Gras, I love costumes, and that was another part of it that it felt like I'd always wonder why we were getting away with this in the in Middle America, and I realized that it was like based on my love of Mardi Gras, and you had to have a couple of days off. So when we back to the writers, it was important that music was a part of their lives, not that there was a writing assignment.
They had to be authentically from the
Authenticity
world.
was one thing that was absolutely important. So then you get to the music, and it was like they knew the songs enough to then stitch together a story based on the songs they thought. And it's all just it's recognition and it's energy. You got energy up, energy down, and that's the way you write any show. You want to take them to the highs and lows, and they basically took the songs that really they liked the most and thought could work in the show. And that's, then they came to us and they put it together and we went, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I never thought of all those songs coming together in even an album. Sure. The songs in the show would have never been, they come from years of work. But when you hear it all put together and stitched into a show, it works.
Right. And the highs and lows, you get fins and then you bring them down at 5 o'clock somewhere is a little down, and then bring it up and down. Yeah. Give us the premise really fast of the main character, and I want that.
Well, it's he's me in a way that I did the same thing. You have, if you have any love of the Caribbean or if it enters your and the line that came in later, and I don't think I'm giving it away, but there's a whole scene of the girl that he's interested in is starting to ask him questions that make him nervous, and about why did you come here, and it's a great little speech, but at the end he starts giving all these answers, and he went, the cold, and and that was it for me. Sometimes. It was that for me, the cold. That's why I went to Key West, Florida, to get warm. And so that's a universal theme as well. So the main character rides that, and then there's two women on vacation who are best friends, and they happen to wind up in Margaritaville. One is very carefree. The other is kind of a stick in the mud, and she's works her thing, and she doesn't lighten up. But eventually, the margaritas in the sun kind of change her attitude and her latitude.
Yeah, exactly.
So and it kind of goes, and then you've got great characters that again, the books that I have written are all. Mark Twain said, "You write what you know about." So I spent a lot of time on a boat in the Caribbean or flying around, and I love it. And I love the historical past of all of those cultures from Europe, kind of coming together in this Callaloo stew pot, 3,000 miles away. And what came out of it, it's some good, some bad, but it's an amazing thing. And fun was always part of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, the few people can claim that that you said you got your finger on the pulse of it, but you created a whole genre. I mean, Bill Monroe bluegrass, Chuck Berry rock and roll, but for you're that whole island sound. We had the Bob Marleys and the like, but but you did that whole trop rock, I guess. You got Kenny Chesney and everyone else imitating it.
Well, it's kind of extended the fact that I'm doing stuff with Kygo now, the DJ. So that's Tropical House. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. That it's still it's wonderful to see that there's still fun in people's lives, because that it keeps us civil and it keeps us.
Final question, really quick. It's called Escape to Margaritaville. Back to the song itself. Mm-hmm. I love the progression of the narrator taking responsibility. It could have been my fault. Yeah. Maybe it was my fault. It's my own damn fault. How'd that come to you?
Catholic Jesuit guilt.
That'll
Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Yeah.
Many pop tops to step on there, but all right, cool. How excited are you going to be to see it on scene?
I'm very excited. It's like minor league ball. I love baseball. It's just like seeing everybody at that level, and it's always part of the process of this is where you start if you want to try to go the whole distance. And I was lucky enough to make it that way. And my biggest thrill would be if kids that start in this show have that same experience.
Hopefully it's a home run, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate
Jason.
it. Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.